Good morning.
Good morning.
Heyo.
Happy belated Thanksgiving and
Mm-hmm.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all the
Cyber
above.
Monday. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys ever feel like any of because I saw like a lot of big name brands come out like, oh, our Black Friday deals are out now like live and active. And it's like 20% off. I'm like, what? 20% off? That's like a Labor Day special, not a Black Friday. It's like 50% off every year. Come on. What are you guys doing?
I
That
have
was just
never
weird.
once participated in Black Friday, so I'm totally out of the loop.
I have accidentally. It's not something I wake up at midnight and go or stay up all night and go do. I don't get it. But hey, kudos if you are and driving the world's economy one purchase at a time.
Yeah. One Xbox at a time.
Yeah. It always gives me a great list of emails to unsubscribe from. So I love that. That's a great.
That was a tactic I deployed this year as well.
Yeah, that's very smart.
It's like, all right, just let them stack up. What ones do I find important?
You know they have your email if they're hitting you on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So
yeah,
purge 100%. The inboxes, people.
Yeah. Well, anyways, now that we're back, and I feel like it's probably a little bit of a rough morning for a Monday because we've been all relaxing and taking some time off and kind of getting to enjoy some time with our families and friends and all that good stuff. So for any of the listeners or viewers out there, please forgive us if we may be a little slow. Maybe the caffeine hasn't kicked in, but I'm on that boat. I've taken quite a few days off, so struggling to get back into the rhythm. But outside of Thanksgiving holidays, you guys are doing good. Excited to be back. Any other plans for Christmas? Are we gonna see Brandy with a new background again, or what?
I'm in Saratoga. I have a very, very early flight back to Miami tomorrow, 5 a.m. Pretty brutal. So I'll have a different background next week too.
You'll be able to hit the office right on time.
Yeah, exactly. My home office.
Don't skip the beat. Yeah, man, it was a good little break, but the deeper I get into this business, the more I try and get done on Sunday afternoons. So my Mondays are a little bit easier and more team focused versus the stuff that I have to get done.
I love a good Sunday work sesh. So I like that. I like that method. Not a ton of news came out though this last week. Kind of expected due to the holidays. I wouldn't expect a lot of people would really care. But there's quite a few good stories we got to talk about. Did you guys have one in particular? I know we have one main topic, but anything that kind of stood out to you guys individually, just kind of scrolling through like shorttermrentals.com or FocusWire, anything like that?
Well, I have one that's it's not really news related, but I've been hearing our industry brought up in podcasts and kind of the media in general. And it's been really interesting. I've heard it on a couple comedy podcasts where people are complaining about Airbnb fees or being asked to do like chores before leaving. And I know that's been a big topic. Or people have been complaining about having to pay a cleaning fee at all. And so I just find it interesting more and more, especially in the last couple of months, we've seen our industry, or at least Airbnb, become like a hot topic, especially around cleaning fees and things like that. So it's interesting to see kind of like our niche market kind of out in the zeitgeist now.
If you don't want to pay a cleaning fee, then clean up after yourself. So don't complain about it, right? Pick one. You can't pick both. I think the interesting stuff for me through the holidays was some of the accommodation stories coming out of the World Cup, where one, there's a severe lack of accommodations in a host country that was maybe a flyer, if you will, to host a game like the World Cup. But a lot of people are flying back and forth from Dubai, so they don't have to stay in Qatar or wherever, I guess, the host games are being played. And they've built little villages all around the stadiums that in many cases they were going for, I think I saw $250 a night, and they showed up and it was kind of Fire Festival style where there wasn't even running water. So Yeah, accommodations at major global sporting events strikes again. This is typically why they're hosted in major cities with heavy travel um, businesses behind them. So accommodations and travel and all that can make sense. But putting those struggles aside, there's a lot of other struggles that are happening with those games with quality and um, protests and what you can and can't say or can and can't do or can and can't drink. So interesting to see this on a global scale and how that makes us happy to have the freedoms that we do. Thankful.
100%. Amen. Amen. Yeah, way to preach on a good Monday morning.
Bring it back around.
I love it. I love it. Bring it back around. Well, no, that's really cool. I agree with both. And I was telling Brandy before we jumped onto the live was that was actually kind of our main topic last week with Jamie from AirDNA, cleaning fees, chore lists, all the above. Always a fun topic. Can't go wrong with that. As a lot of people have opinions on it, whether to or to not. So always great to see it in the mainstream media. But today's article of choice, shout out to Paul Stevens from shorttermrentals.com, but covering that, Airbnb co-founder joins the Rouse funding, which I think this is their second round. They did a pre-seed or a seed round prior to this 3 million raise. And so Rouse, basically what they're doing is building these cabins, finding a piece of land to lease and put those cabins on, and the landowner can then decide if they want to participate in, of course, the cleaning of it. Okay, and to they can either do the cleaning of it or they can hire it out through the main company itself. So interesting move. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions because there's a lot that we can discuss and go into, but I have a few points myself. I'll let Michael, since you're ready to speak, let's just let you take the floor.
I think Nate, Joe, Brian can be the juggernauts of startup investments over the next decade. They have the data. They know where travelers are going. They got to be careful with non-competitive investments. And this one, some people might view as competitive if they're in certain markets, but because these are so remote cabins, there's probably not a whole lot of people up in arms that they're playing in the backyard, like, maybe Apartments by Marriott with Sextons, some kind of rivalry right there down the street. With the amount of data that these founders have, not to mention the tens of billions of dollars that they're worth, even individually, I think it's a good litmus test for where the industry is going, and for them to put their money behind a concept like this is awesome. We had on this show a guest a number of months ago, probably 6 months ago, Hector from Unplugged, who has a similar concept, but takes it one step further and actually removes cell phones from people when they get to property, a digital detox. I'm desperately in need of a digital detox. I feel like I'm sucked into my phone more and more as my business grows and scales. Good to see you, Steve Schwab, by the way. But it's interesting, again, like the direction that travelers are focusing on: more remote, more property as the destination, versus choosing a beach town and kind of just doing the usual same thing every week, every year. But yeah, I think all in all, seeing an Airbnb founder starting to invest in the space is a good sign for all early stage companies in the space, especially if you can land an investment from them.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. And sorry, Brandy, I was just gonna say I like in the last year they've created 20 cabins and they've had about 2,000 guests, so 100 guests per cabin. It's not bad to say or do for your first year. I think, especially that I think they're mostly in Germany, um, or some other part of Europe. Um, Totally forgot and misread the
Germany.
article, but Germany. So, this isn't a market that we're seeing a lot of activity in. I think from like news perspective wise, I know there's inventory out there. I know there's travelers. I know all that stuff is existing, even though we don't see it. But I think that's given them, quite the I like seeing a startup taking that slow approach. Like, okay, 2,000 guests. Let's get some inventory. Let's get some heads and beds. Let's figure out what works, what doesn't work. And now they're going to create probably some more great concepts with this funding, which I'm excited to see about because I'm a big believer in like the recreation destination stay. So yeah, really exciting. But I'll let Brandy add her thoughts now.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting now that we're seeing kind of people look at these vacations of where can we go to disconnect. Like to Michael's point, we're so attached to our phones. I just kind of had my own little digital detox in the mountains for 5 or 6 days, and it feels so great to just not look at my phone. And so I think, obviously people can use their cell phones at these cabins. It's not like those others that Michael mentioned, but I think you're seeing people more be like, where can we go to get away, where we can be like have quality time with the people that we're spending on vacation. And we're seeing this in Germany, but we're obviously seeing that in the United States as well. So I think that's nice. Obviously, as an urban operator, I still want people to come to the city, but I can totally understand the desire to want to have this, kind of escape from your daily life.
Yeah. And we were so like Brandy, you were at Michael, you were too. Duh, I forgot. We were all in Miami together at the Book Direct show. So getting to see a lot of people talk about like destination creation and really like embarking on like the experience side rather than just the like scale. Everyone talks about, getting 300, 1,000, 5,000 doors or whatever the goal marker is. And it's really, I don't know. I think when you can focus on profitability early on with limited inventory, that is really rememberable. It is really something like these families or these couples or these solo travelers are going to be able to go back and be like, hey, every year, right before the holidays, guess what? Me and the 10 closest people to me are going to go to these cabins. I saw that, Rouse did like a retreat basically. It's one property with multiple cabins. I love that concept. I would do it personally. So I love that that's the focus, and obviously, um, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with the capital in the sense of are they going to focus on scale now? Are they going to just try to push to the unit count and kind of drop down in quality, or are they going to use it wisely and continue to focus on experience first? That's kind of my big.
Joe, who has stepped off of the Airbnb board, is going down his own entrepreneurial route post Airbnb with, I think it's called Samara, but basically it's these cabins that they're putting out there. So Joe's investment is more towards a management company where they're going and leasing land from people who have 30,000 acres in the middle of nowhere, and dropping remote cabins out there for people to go and enjoy. So it's sort of lease arb model, but just out in the countryside. And in terms of, I think one of the biggest challenges is getting people's attention to go out to these places. Finding or hearing about them, it pretty much has to be word of mouth unless they have incredible PR or they have incredible stories to tell that go along with it. And they're counting on, people posting and reposting and all of that, just to grow the audience and the brand awareness. But yeah, I think my assumption of the capital would be to expand into new markets, to take on more leases, both of the physical structures as well as the land, and hope that Airbnb can drive them the demand that they want, that they need to survive. I mean, ultimately, it's probably, it makes sense, but I think, it's challenging to get people to go out to the middle of nowhere if they don't have the cognitive awareness that this thing exists.
Well, I also think when the model of when they're leasing the land and then obviously having to build the cabins, like for me, like the capital like outlay that you'd have to have, because you have to put in, you might not have to put in electricity, but if you don't put in electricity, you have to put in propane, which is like, and all of your, sewer and all of that, all of
Mhm.
the water, and then building the physical structure. And I know that it's now fairly easy, or easier than it has been, to pre-assemble all these cabins and then take them apart and refabricate them on site. But still, that's just, it's a lot of money. That's for one cabin. And so I'm curious to see how scalable that is, as opposed to finding these cabins in the middle of nowhere. But that's obviously not a popular inventory type.
Was I was gonna say the logistics when it comes to operations for a normal property, whether it's urban or just a single family home, is so different compared to these cabins and or even a glamping site. Because we took, like, for recreation rentals, we attempted and still want to attempt, but it just wasn't, like, the numbers didn't add up and the logistics didn't add up. But we tried to do a glamping site, on it was like on 5 or 10 acres. We're gonna do about 5 to 7 cabins or like glamping tents, and even those in itself was gonna be like, you need to have someone full time operating that. You can't just kind of do an automated messaging system and keypad lock and noise monitoring and occupant. Like, you can't do all the stuff that we're so used to talking about and preaching on, whether on this show or in operations or at Verma. Like, it's just not the same, and it's really hard to manage, to be honest.
You gonna go wash the sheets down in the river? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
these
Well,
tiny homes don't have laundry
Yeah.
machines.
Yeah.
yeah. And you think about cell service, a lot of these locations probably have really spotty cell service. So if you have a guest that gets stuck in the mud during a particularly rainy week, like, there's just, just think from our operation side in cities how difficult that is. And then putting that in like places that I've been in the middle of nowhere, like if something really
Mhm.
happens, you have to kind of walk out maybe to find cell service. So I'll be curious. I would love to see what their operations are like, and what their kind of
Yeah.
like, also their staffing is like.
Yeah, because you
The
can't
safety.
charge $500 a night at these places, but if they really are in the middle of nowhere, getting someone to go turn them,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
with gas prices these days, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say the safety aspect alone, but like you said, Michael, the laundry, you're gonna have to, like, part of your SOP is you're gonna have to have like 4 or 5 par. Like, to be honest,
Mhm.
like, there's no way you're gonna be able to turn over a cabin like that with quality linen and laundry service without having a solid inventory amount. So, and that's just for the bedding. That's not including like adding like soaps and shampoos and kitchen
Are
stuff.
they gonna ask people to take off their sheets and to put their own sheets on?
Yeah. Who knows?
We're going back to the OG vacation rental days. It comes full
Yeah.
circle.
And back to no tech and to do everything
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly, exactly. But it'll be, I think that it's also an opportunity for innovation. I mean, these companies
Yeah.
aren't going to go back that way. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of how they finagle an efficient system.
So the question I want to ask you guys, because I so this coming Wednesday, Steve Milo was on Slick Talk, or is on Slick Talk. His episode's coming out, and he talked about, we know the Spitfire that he is, right? He definitely draws a crowd, he grabs attention. That's why I loved the episode. It was a lot of fun for me, personally. But he did mention that, okay, Airbnb promotes live like a local, and his comment after going into a couple examples of how living like a local can damage communities, going into how vacation rentals are supposed to be this destination creation kind of aspect, right? Where it's out in the woods, it's maybe not in your normal market where there's not a lot of local communities, and a heavy, uh, maybe a lack of heavy tourism traffic. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Should vacation rentals really go into the route of like the Rouse method, where it's, hey, let's find some unused land. This landowner can make a little side money, or whether it's a rev share or a lease, and then we have this awesome experience and destination creation? Or do we go back into, everybody should be able to have the right to list a room, a house, an investment property, a city, apartment, whatever it is. They should all have that right to do it and go all
I have a lot of thoughts and
in.
feelings about this.
I knew you
I
were.
think
That's why I wanted to ask.
I think that and I don't think there's one clear answer to this. I think that live like a local, if you're traveling, let's say to Munich and you're with one or two people and you want to be in the heart of the city and kind of experience what it's like to do that, that's a different type of travel than when you're showing up with like 12 people for a bachelor party or a family vacation. And so there's all these different types of travel, and I can see where when you're putting, over a short period of time, significantly more people in a community that's not used to accommodating that can be very damaging for the local community. And the other side of that is there are some communities that are very small that are only in existence because there are tourists that are coming, because you are having these huge groups of people come in the summer or the winter, whatever it is. And if you take that away, then that community doesn't have necessarily a source of income. So I think that portion is more like a regulation question, and setting maybe limits, or having some sort of sensible policy that doesn't totally stifle those smaller communities that can't handle the demand.
So we talked about this pre-show a little bit, but the industry in urban markets is certainly moving a lot more towards hotel style. And in vacation rental markets, it's moving a lot more towards destination or remoteness is a good thing. I think if you really want to live like a local, go live in a suburb, go to a soccer game, your toddler soccer game on a weekend. People living like a local while they're traveling, it's a faux pas. I don't, when I travel, I'm not doing the same activities I do when I am living a normal life in my own town. So it's a nice thought. It's aspirational for sure, but I probably stay up later and have the music louder and spend more money. And it's not the reality when people travel. So living next door to one, I get why a lot of people wouldn't want to in an urban setting when they are living there and they are local. But part of it goes back to guests and how they behave. And if they actually want to live like a local, they're going to respect their neighbors and they're going to respect the community and not trash it and not build a bad name or bad reputation for other guests. So we always look towards platforms or properties, but I always try and look towards the travelers. Just don't be a jerk when you travel. If you want to stay up late and drink too much, then go to a bar. Like that's what they're built for. So, if that's how you behave at your own house, like I'm glad I don't live next door to you, but it happens from time to time for celebrations and whatnot. But, it really comes down more towards the guests than, property manager can do everything right. They can have, screens in place. They can have noise aware. They can have, even people on site. People used to throw hotel parties all the time. People are on site. It still happens when people are traveling. So there's a time and place for anything. And hopefully we can raise the next generation to understand and respect boundaries.
Yeah, do we think that travelers have gotten more rowdy and less respectful, or are we just hearing about it more? Because I honestly don't really know the answer to that, but it's like there's no accountability for you as a traveler except your own like personal, levels of respect for other people, because the guest rating, for example, on Airbnb, I mean, that doesn't really do anything. So it's curious that it does get, I think, a little frustrating as an operator when you're like all the responsibility is on us to make sure that everything is done correctly. And then we have no control over what other people are doing, and if you do have on-site security, like we have big buildings in Miami and New Orleans, we have overnight security, but it might be one person. So, are they responsible for hundreds of people's behavior in that building? So, and those are all in theory adults. So, it's
I struggle with, I don't think in my opinion, there's no really right answer, right? You have to be, as an operator, you have to set the right scene, right? I think you have to like I hate this phrase and term, but like knowing your avatar, right? Like, okay, who are you trying to attract, and like do your best to create that scene and scenario, right? But we're not in a perfect world and never are going to be. So you're gonna have people that are gonna not be your quote unquote avatar or your typical guest that you would love to have, but they're gonna look at your property on Airbnb, Verbo, whatever, and they're gonna see it and be like, damn, that looks like a fun time. I want to party there. I can look really cool in front of my friends or my coworkers or whatever. If I, get this place, it'll be a great thing. But then also, like you guys are saying, is you have to kind of hopefully, you know, think that these people are adults and that they can be responsible enough to know when to stop drinking, when to turn down the music, when to, do all this other stuff, whatever it might be. But we're I'm guilty. I may have music going on too loud and not be drinking. I'm deaf. So for me, some of that stuff is different. But it's just kind of, I don't know. There's I think it's both. I think it's both. Set the scene right for the right people that you want, but then the guests should be more responsible and
Yeah,
understanding
it's
that.
not something you can regulate out of existence. If you ban short-term rentals like New York City did, then people still
Hotels are
figure out
just
a way to
gonna,
do it.
yeah,
Uh, if you put all the right checks in place, bad guests can still happen, or people that are good guests typically can be out of character and behave poorly. It happens. I think the onus is on a lot of people, but I think this is also why, to an earlier point, short-term rentals, especially in urban markets, are moving more towards hotel style inventory versus single home. The biggest challenge is not in markets like Myrtle Beach or Hilton Head that are almost exclusively travel and short-term rentals, but it's in places like Palm Springs that have a very blended community between residents,
mhm,
retirees, and travelers.
yeah,
That's where it gets really, really challenging to properly regulate. If Hilton Head banned short-term rentals, the whole town dies and the houses go foreclosed. In cities, they can totally ban it, and there's hotels, maybe a few more hotels get built, and that's that. But these blended communities, housing prices will drop tremendously if short-term rentals are banned. I think La Quinta out in the Palm Desert funded their entire Parks and Rec um, annually by the TOT from short-term rentals. So these communities are getting benefit out of it, but does it outweigh the complaints and the concerns? I think they also did. I'm quoting from memory, so this is not perfect, but the majority of complaints come from 5 or 10 neighbors.
Mhm.
And so they're very loud. They call in every week, every time someone checks in. Is it really a community wide problem, or is it one neighbor just really hates the activity next door? Or maybe that neighbor has had bad experiences. Uh, so is it like a three strikes you're out? And then, it's just a really complex topic, especially in very blended communities.
I was gonna
Yeah,
ask you,
I agree.
Brandy, I was gonna ask you, do you think operators need to get more strict? I feel like a lot of operators just like a party happens or something bad happens where a guest kind of trashes a place, and not like maybe not intentionally. They're just, let's just say, they're sloppy humans. They don't clean. They're dirty. They're just, hygiene is out the window when it comes to living. Do you think operators are just need to be more strict, or do they have lack of control to even be more strict on like charging like extra cleaning fees or whatever that might entail?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult. So for us, for example, like we can have photographic evidence with like timestamps of someone just like totally destroying the place. The odds that we are going to recoup that money from a guest, and it's not like, someone broke a, bed and we're trying to get the money. It's like you just were a mess. It's very, very, very difficult. I would say we almost never win those cases or even I mean, we don't really try anymore unless it's something truly egregious. Um, And so I would love to say that, yeah, we could try to put like a little bit more of a stop to it. But for parties, I mean, that takes additional manpower, and hiring more people is incredibly expensive. So there's that component. And then there's just the difficulty for, at least for us, it's just easier to like call it a wash and be like, okay, that was expensive, blacklist the guest and try to move on. So it's difficult because if the operator tries to control the situation a bit more, the costs just go up tremendously.
Totally makes sense.
Which means the good guests are paying more to cover the
Mhm.
bad guests'
Yeah.
activities.
Yeah. So basically the answer to our question is there is no right answer. It's both the operator and the guest need to both be
Yeah.
responsible and go with that. So interesting. Well,
Don't be a
I know
jerk.
don't
There you
be
go.
a jerk. Clean up after yourself. You'll get less of a cleaning fee, maybe. Maybe. Cool. Well, this was a fun topic. I really enjoyed it. Michael, you have anything to say before I wrap it up or what?
No, I think just
Just,
to end where we
the-
started, it's great to see the industry juggernauts putting money in places that's not just Airbnb. I think hopefully that trend continues. It's going to be good for the space overall. And this is how more and more startups can get born, is through the people who've done it and been wildly successful reinvest in the space that they know best. So that's, super exciting to see, and I hope they continue to do this.
Same. Agreed. Well, I have a very serious and important announcement to make. I'm leaving the show. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But no, I do have
And for which I'm thankful.
Great. Love it. For on a serious note, we did get a couple DMs from some of our listeners saying, what happened to this host GPO giveaway that we're supposed to do? We are doing it December 1st. We decided not to do it right before the holiday because everyone was taking time off. So just to any of our listeners that have DM'd me on Instagram or even on LinkedIn, we are doing the coffee box giveaway December 1st. So check out social medias for that. I promise we didn't tell you we're going to do a giveaway and then not do it. It was just bad timing on our part, and we realized we wanted to wait until everyone was back from holiday. So that was my important announcement. Super thankful you guys do the show every Monday. And any other closing thoughts, comments before
We're thankful for you, Will.
Yes. Like,
oh yeah, sure you are, Michael. Mr. I wish Will would quit the show.
Mine was said with sincerity.
I knew Brandy was. She's
Mine
an
is
OG now.
Will.
Hey, we're almost at our 100th episode, so I can't quit before our 100th episode, at least, and then I'll quit.
All right, so we've got the target date.
2 more weeks. He's out. Just kidding.
Is that it?
All right, guys. Yeah, like 2 more weeks. I think we're at 9. This is 98, I think.
Wow.
Don't quote me. 97, 98. One of those. So,
right.
Yep. Yeah,
we
very
got to do
exciting
something
stuff.
big for 100.
Yeah.
I know. We were supposed to do something big for our 2-year anniversary too, but man, we
Came
we're doing real good.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for all of our listeners for tuning in for these extra couple minutes, and we'll see you all again next week.